Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This meeting has been called to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. President Fiani, here. Vice President Trombley.
Here.
Treasurer Conley.
Here.
Secretary Minor.
Here.
Mr. View.
Here.
Mr. Kraus. Absent. Mr. Anderson.
Here.
Is there a motion to approve this evening's agenda as presented?
So moved. Support.
Moved by Mr. Trombley, supported by Mr. Conley. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is approved, 6-0. School improvement presentations, Hawkins and Scranton. Dr. Suri.
Yes, I would like to introduce, I believe we'll start with Hawkins, is that all right? That'll work for us. Hawkins and Scranton have volunteered to begin a series of presentations to the board on our school improvement plans for the year. Every year by law, we create new school improvement plans based on we begin with looking at data carefully and what our needs are, academic needs, and sometimes non-academic needs as well. And then they devise a plan, and it's kind of a year-long process that really ratchets up in the summertime. So they've been working hard the last couple months on finalizing these plans, and they were submitted on September 1st in time by law once again. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first volunteer to present was Basha Keeler, who's our newest principal in the district from Hawkins Elementary School. And so I know she's brought her data coaches with her who have been very instrumental in writing the plan. And so I'll just turn over the next few moments to the Hawkins team.
Thank you. I do have a one-page handout for all of you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for having us here today. I'm excited to present our school improvement plan to you. We'll be having two data coaches with me, and I have Christina Wood and Debbie Alcott, and they're both teachers at Hawkins Elementary. Before I go into the plan, I think it's important for us to look at the data to see, because the data really should be driving our plan, our school improvement plan for the upcoming year. So I just took screenshots of the data from the last 5 years for Hawkins Elementary, and I'll just go through them real quick for you. So we have 3rd grade reading and math, and you will see that our reading scores have been sort of steady. It's the green line, and then the last year they did decline. And then you'll see the math, which is really astounding. You'll see that dip there in the middle, but every year it's been gone up as well, which is really attest to the math instructional coach and also the new math curriculum. So that's exciting as well. So this is for 3rd grade. This is 4th grade, and again, the green one is for reading. The blue one is for math. You can see the trend over the last 5 years, and the yellow one is kind of hard to see, but that is the one for writing. And so based on that plan, you'll notice that when we have the presentations from the elementary schools, you'll see that all 4 of us have the same goals, and the goals are around reading, math, writing, and science. The last 3 years when I was at the ISD level, you'll know that science scores for the state of Michigan are pretty low, but the good news is that the county level science scores for Livingston County are one of the highest in the states. So it's still part of our goal, but I just wanted to share sort of that data with you. So as I mentioned, we have the 4 goals. They're reading, writing, and math, and they say all students at Hawkins Elementary will become proficient in reading, writing, math, and science. I'm going to turn it over to my data coaches, and they're actually going to talk about some of the strategies and activities that we have for each of the goals, so you're a little bit more familiar with about what we're doing at Hawkins.
Okay, for our reading, one of our first strategies is the RTI literacy model. It's something that's been in place and is going to remain in place, offering support to students K through 4 around literacy, focusing mostly on reading with some writing in there as well. activities that are going on, Title I or RTI Summer School, offered to students that qualify. All of our kindergarten teachers attended First Steps training and are beginning the implementation of it this year. It's part of the lower elementary fast reading program, and it's phonics and how words go together, and the teachers are excited about it, and we're excited about it as well to see how that trend could maybe impact our students and help our reading scores. And then our next strategy listed is to continue aligning the Common Core with the reading curriculum, and teachers meet district-wide. We have members of an ELA committee. We don't have curriculum coordinators anymore for that, but we have teachers who donate their time to come together and meet and work together to make sure that our curriculum is aligned with Common Core. And then for writing, we have been working on common writing rubrics and assessments for grades K through 4. We are meeting within our grade levels to compare assessments, kind of come up with what we are expecting, common rubrics within each grade level. And then we also have what's called literacy labs or reading labs, whatever you want to call them, where teachers are being trained. They're going in and serving teachers who are skilled in reading and writing workshop. And then after their initial observations, the second year, they welcome other teachers into their room so they can get feedback and improve their instruction in the areas of literacy. And that's something that's been going on for several years now. It's very effective, and anytime new teachers are hired, we have a district literacy coach now who's in charge of making sure that they are involved in that process as well.
Okay, for math, after all the school has been tested with the DIBELS test, teachers get together in grade level meetings. We analyze the data and go over and see which students might be struggling students or at-risk students. We then use best practice and small group instruction to meet their needs. EAs push into the classroom twice a week for 45 minutes to help us out. If students are still struggling at the end of the year, they're invited to attend summer school. And for science, we are continuing to have PD around the formative assessments that we worked on last year. We will continue to support our curriculum with more nonfiction science books, and this year we hired a district science coach.
So that is basically our plan in a nutshell, and we went over it real quick. It took us a long time to write it and sort of analyze the data and put some of those things in there, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you very much.
And what I would suggest is we allow Scranton now to present their plan, and then perhaps there'd be questions that the board might have for both schools, just briefly, for clarification purposes. Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
And at this point, then we have Scranton, Mark Wilson, Principal Scranton, and Julie Malia, his data coach. New to the position this year, they're here to present the Scranton School Improvement Plan, and you do not need the...
Reading on the desk. I'm a little bit nervous because Julie just told me she's going to pass out. I think she's referring to papers.
Anything's possible.
This makes me a little scared when I hear that. Thank you. So very much like the presentation Hawkins just did, I'm going to start also by talking about our data picture. And then I'm going to turn it over to Julie. She's going to talk to you about some strategies that we use to address some of the concerns that we currently have and to support in the areas where we're doing well. And then at the end of today's presentation, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our fifth goal, which is new to us this year. And actually, Basha, when she was at the ISD, actually helped us craft it. So it's kind of cool that we're here the same night Basha is, because although she's at a different school, she had a huge part in us being able to pull that off. So to start off by talking about data, so Scranton Middle School, we're blessed to have scores that always reflect very well on our community and our school. And but we do not allow ourselves, because of that, to stop the hard work to continue to be better. We have a couple of subgroups that are very important for this conversation that we're always looking at. One would be those students who come to us socioeconomically disadvantaged. Those would be students who often would be receiving free and reduced lunch and things like that. There's a lot of research that shows that socioeconomic status and school achievement have a link between the two. And we certainly see that in our score. So one of the groups we're always looking at is our socioeconomically disadvantaged population. They tend to score anywhere from about 10% to 15% points below the main group, which would be, you know, the non-socioeconomically disadvantaged and the non-special education student population. The second group I just gave away, but the second group we keep an eye on also is the students receiving special education services. Those are the two subgroups that we are really targeting because they tend to fall below the average numbers that we see. We are very fortunate. We've had positive trends over the last 3 years in ELA, both the reading and the writing in ELA, and we've had positive trends, very positive trends in math over the past 3 years as well. So again, we're very blessed to have that. We feel very good about that. The area that is worthy of note would be science. As Basha mentioned, in the state of Michigan, schools tend to do not real great in science, and Scranton is not exempt from that. The target right now in the state of Michigan is somewhere in the 34% range, and we sit at about 20. The target's around 34, and we sit at about 20. So science is an area that we keep very close watch on. We actually, this year, are going through a science, hopefully a curriculum realignment in science, because part of the issue for us in science is we teach a lot of 9th grade content instead of 8th grade content, and we're tested on 8th grade content. So if you don't teach the content, you're probably not going to perform very well in the overall assessment. We had some very exciting news this past summer. I know the board has already heard about the top to bottom rankings, but I think it's a really good demonstration of where Scranton is today and how hard we're working, even though we're pleased with our scores, to continuously make them better. Back in 2011, Scranton was ranked in the 71st percentile in the top to bottom rankings, and we were, I believe, the either lowest or second to lowest school in Livingston County in that ranking. As of 2013, so 2 years later, we were up to the 86th percentile, and this past year, for 2014, we are up to the 92nd percentile, and we are the second highest ranked middle school in both Livingston and Washtenaw counties. So we're feeling really good about that. We're seeing the benefits of the work that we're doing, and that's going to kind of segue me into Julie's presentation, which is what are we doing? So Julie?
Okay, hello. We are working, this is not really my forte, speaking in front of groups of adults. So I'm going to imagine you all as children right now, if that's all right with you. Our goals are that all students will increase proficiency in ELA, math, science, that all Scranton Middle School students will increase proficiency in 21st century learning skills, communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, the use of technology. Our final goal, Scranton Middle School will strengthen the conditions that support learning for all students. And Mark is going to address the steps we're taking in that regard once I'm finished here. Okay, so we are working on a curriculum alignment. Our goal is to not only align our English, language arts, math, science, and social studies curriculum, but also with the content standards for ELA, and that the writing and reading skills be aligned in all content areas. We are currently using assessment literacy training, and students and teachers are being trained in the use of learning targets to help students to prepare. We are also aligning our assessment and instructional practices in mathematics with the use of learning targets as well as formative and summative assessments. We are moving towards a standards-based learning environment, and students will actively engage in science units of studies with that regard. We are also using professional development opportunities such as the PD24 meetings for teachers to work in a collaborative group. We are using data-driven instruction to track student growth, to monitor at not only a classroom level, but as a grade level, to help remediate for students in need. Teachers participate in peer coaching and mentoring, and we also participate in Promethean training and technology training to bring technology into the classroom.
Fabulous. I gave you a handout that has 4 squares on it. It's labeled 2014-2015 Instructional Best Practices. This is that 5th goal that I mentioned earlier. And we went and again saw Basha when she was at the ISD last year, and we said, Basha, one of the things that we know to be true is it's really important our curriculum's aligned. It's really important our teachers are subject area experts and know what they need to teach kids. But we think it's equally important to know how to teach kids and what are those strategies that are what we would call high-yield strategies, those strategies that really make a difference in terms of student growth and student learning. And so we established this 5th goal, and this is the goal that we're actually measuring for the state of Michigan this year in our school improvement plan. And it is based around the idea of making sure that in every classroom in the building, the best practices, those things that are shown by research to work for kids and enhance learning, are happening in every classroom. And so this sheet you have in front of you is something that we actually developed at the end of last year as we were going through the evaluation process with staff. And we shared it with all staff and had a discussion with all staff as we went through that process. And it shows basically in that beginning area, what are the things at Scranton that we know we need to be doing and we need to be learning about right now, and we need to be getting ourselves more able to implement with fidelity. And assessment literacy is that piece for us this year. The next box are those things that we're pretty good at, but we're still working at it. We wouldn't call it perfected yet. And you can see a long list of things there: the project-based learning, the positive behavior supports, reading and writing across the curriculum, the workshop model for literacy instruction, data-driven decisions, engagement, differentiated instruction. And then that bottom box are those things that we believe all staff should be secure in. That any day we walk into a classroom and we're seeing that, those strategies, they should be clean, they should be rich, they should be engaging, and teachers should be able to do them with little to no difficulty because of where we've been as a professional development community. And so this is that fifth goal, and it's the idea that we make sure that in every classroom, teachers are doing the best possible instruction that they can to move kids to that next level. So that's kind of that tier 1 instruction. How do you provide the best quality teaching and learning in every classroom? And then of course for tier 2, for kids who are struggling beyond the regular classroom, Scranton continues to have advantage classes in math and ELA to support small groups of learners who need some extra remediation and some extra assistance. And we continue to provide those opportunities as well. So that's our school improvement plan in a nutshell.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions or follow-up for either of the buildings?
I've got one question. On the Scranton top to bottom rankings, what key thing do you think you did to jump so high up from?
I think there's a number of answers to that. I think one thing we did was we put in interventions that were very targeted to those students who were in that bottom 30%. Mm-hmm. So building things like advantage math and advantage reading, which is what I would call a double dip. The child still has English, but now they get an extra hour of English. They still have math, but now they get an extra hour of math. Really doubles the exposure to the kids who are struggling the most to get them to fill those holes that maybe are preventing them from acquiring the knowledge they need in the general ed classroom. So I think that's huge. Mm-hmm. And we filter a different group of kids through those classes every quarter, so we can touch a lot of kids using that type of an intervention. So I think that really helps. I think the other piece is truly focusing on instructional pedagogy, truly focusing on what works with kids, and if it's not something that we see high yield out of, let's not use that. Let's not spend our time doing something that's going to get us 50% yield if we know there's something out there that has been shown to do better than that. So those would be the two silver bullets per se that I think have really made a difference.
Very good.
Well, thank you, Mr. Wilson and Mrs. Keeler, for the presentation this evening. We greatly appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing results of your from you.
Excellent. Thanks for inviting us in.
Thank you. At this time in the meeting, we have the first call to public. If anybody wishes to speak, please step up to the microphone and indicate your name as well.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Ellen Lafferty, President of the Brighton Education Association. And it's that time again where we'd like to present to the school board room, the community, the staff, and the school board, the recent purchase by the Brighton Education Association. This was purchased at the Spring Art Festival here at the Brighton High School. And this is by a student by the name of Amy Notzel. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. Netzel. Sorry, I knew it was a challenging one. She's a 2014 graduate student. She was in the leadership group last year. I hope folks can see this. This is her rendition of maybe a visit to Stonehenge. I'm not quite sure her experience with this. Easter Island, I'm sorry. That was, where's Henry? It was a long day. But anyway, I wanted to get this to the room. We're going to hopefully get it up on your walls soon. We have a plaque coming that will go underneath it, identifying who the student is, and add it to our nice little beginning gallery that we have going on. So I wanted to present it for you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak at this time?
Hi, how are you? I'm Joellen Pizarczyk, 12477 Scenic View Court, Milford, that's Brighton Township. And I don't know if you all got the letter. I sent each member of the board a letter this last week. I didn't receive any kind of response. I thought maybe you didn't get it. So I thought I'd come in and talk with you this evening. I recently heard a speech by Carly Fiorina, the former CEO of Hewlett-Packard. One of the things she said was, human potential is the only unlimited resource we have. So I wanted to speak to that and speak to us as owners and supporters of our public education system here in Brighton, which is a common good, and express my thoughts that we all share in the cost and benefit our public schools provide. And we also share in the responsibility to administer our resources in the most principled, judicious, and painstaking way we can to the benefit of the entire community. And I know you all try to do that. I wanted to speak about education choice in general. It's nothing new. It dates back to the Greeks, as well as 18th and 19th century writings of Thomas Paine and John Stuart Mill. Also, Milton Friedman in 1955 proposed school choice as a way for our capitalist system and our economy to be productive and foster efficient free market innovation, just like we do in business, industry, healthcare, and other important economic segments of our economy. Democrat Lyndon Johnson was a proponent of school choice in the 60s. Ronald Reagan supported it in the 80s. The American Federation of Teacher President Al Shanker famously supported charter schools. In 1999, a former advisor to Vice President Al Gore was quoted in New Republic as saying, "Those who invented charter schools wanted to improve 88,000 public schools, and empirical studies have demonstrated that indeed competition works just as the reformers predicted." So the proposed Lindbaum Classical Academy is not about a political or partisan issue. It's about offering real alternatives to the community of learners, of which some 200 are currently homeschoolers, and they come from outlying areas such as Linden, Fenton, Pinckney, Hamburg. Students who attend the Lindbaum Academy will likely to be studious, earnest, high-achieving kids, and they will further enhance the reputation of the Brighton area schools overseeing the charter. The point of charters is to offer diversity. A single programming format certainly does not meet every student's needs. No two children, even in the same family, have the same needs. We have all different sorts of charters targeting all different segments of learning needs, performing and fine arts, career academies, technical academies, etc. 41 states and the District of Columbia offer charters. They exist around the world. In California, local school districts are the most frequent charter holders, chartering schools that their traditional schools do not or cannot meet the needs of. I'm not going to go into the reputation of the Hillsdale College and the Barney School Initiative program that they are sponsoring. I don't think anybody questions that. Hillsdale's been in business since 1844. Their mission is to furnish all persons who wish, irrespective of nationality, color, or sex, a literary and scientific education, and to combine with this such moral and social instruction as will best develop the minds and improve the hearts of its students. In 2001, they launched the Hoagland's Teacher Center for Excellence, and I think their reputation speaks for itself. The charter, yes, sir.
You utilize your allotted 3 minutes. I'd like to just see if anybody else wishes to speak. If not, then you're welcome to continue.
Okay, thanks.
So at this time, does anybody else wish to speak? Is there anybody who wishes to speak? I assume Mrs. Eikens wishes to speak even though she did not say anything.
Yes, please. I'm trying to be quieter. Let's
Let's see. Ms. Pizarczyk. Ms. Pizarczyk. Wait.
Call me Jo Ellen.
There you go. I'm Sue Ellen. What a coincidence.
Okay, so Jo Ellen here is, I'm Sue Ellen Ikens.
Oh, by the way, you didn't leave your address. Where do you live?
Ma'am, you know,
Brighton Township.
ma'am, you're supposed to direct and address the board.
Okay, why didn't we ask for an address?
You have a tendency to
I did
abuse.
actually give my address.
Okay,
Not
well,
only did she give her address, but there is no requirement to give your address. I eliminated that when I took the president's seat. You tend to abuse the call of the public. I wish for you to utilize the call of the public in a respectful manner and address the board in the way in which it was intended.
Okay. Okay, so I'm hoping my time starts right now. Jo Ellen, you said something about industry, business, and healthcare being places in which the private sector has flourished, and we've been able to take advantage of the best that competition has to offer. And I would like to point out that our founders put together a bicameral legislature and a three-branch federalist system, or system of federalism, in order to slow down change. It is a given that what separates American democracy from parliamentary democracy in Israel and Europe, and of course non-democratic countries all over the world, is that change here is incremental, slow, painful, and the reason for that is because our founders didn't want a system that swings back and forth between the right and the left. Our founders wanted a stable system where all interests are at the table, and then change goes through a legislature and is then signed into law by an executive branch, and if necessary, interpreted by the judicial. The reason I bring up the slowness is because the private sector is not slow. The private sector is efficient, it's fast, it's decisive. The private sector is the best solution for almost every endeavor. However, it is not the best solution for our schools. It is not the best solution for our military. It is not the best solution for our police or our fire department. There are certain sacred obligations we have as elected officials and as citizens of the greatest democracy ever created. And that is to protect our children from private profit interests, to protect our military from becoming mercenaries, to protect our communities from burning down to the ground because they didn't pay their monthly fire department bill. This is an absolute fundamental of democracy that I have not seen mentioned anywhere among the so-called classical academy literature.
Mrs. Ikens, you have utilized your 3 minutes.
So to continue, the Lindbaum Academy will be a public charter under the same legal requirements as all Michigan charter schools and the supervision of Superintendent Mike Flanagan. We currently spend $1 million a year on charter schools, of which they receive about $1,500 less per child than regular schools. Yet this has proven to be a really great investment. A July study by the University of Arkansas showed that for every $1,000 invested in charters, Michigan students averaged an 18-point improvement in math and a 17-point improvement in reading in the National Assessment of Educational Programs. A recent Friedman study review of 12 randomized controlled studies found that in 11 of them, the outcomes for charters in terms of academic performance, graduation rates, college matriculation, those were all enhanced. And it also reported greater parent satisfaction and better matching to student learning needs. Cato Institute reports in 22 of 23 studies that local public school performance improved concurrently with local charter competition. I think this is a win-win for Brighton. I love the idea of Brighton becoming an educational mecca and magnet for school choice in Livingston County. In addition to selling Lindbaum for $1.45 million and receiving a 3% return on each student foundation allowance, the tax base at large, the business community, and our local culture will be enhanced. I think this charter school offers Brighton area schools an opportunity to complement the existing roster of public, private, and charter schools and continue their solid progress toward eliminating the current deficit. I think it will also attract a renewed interest in a stellar academic program, a unique school that will draw serious students from surrounding communities to partake of the rich academic learning opportunities here. As the program grows and is marketed outside the district, its reputation will expand. We will draw a student body from across Michigan and families migrating from outside our state. You guys face a unique opportunity to make a bold, honorable, and visionary decision that will provide diverse school options and meet unique learner needs. It'll unlock human potential of all of our students and provide each of them with genuine freedom to learn. I think we serve a broad and diverse community of varied school learners. Every child in this community deserves access to appropriate educational programming that meets their individual academic needs, and I think we need to champion these strategies. And we can do this by expanding the school choice right here and now in Brighton. And I would submit that you, board members, as well as Superintendent Gray and his staff, have a fabulous opportunity knocking on the Brighton area school door, and I think that you're well equipped to handle it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also wanted to direct a comment towards the nobody questions the reputation of Hillsdale College. I would recommend that the board Google Hillsdale College. You will find that questioning of Hillsdale College is ubiquitous. They have quite a reputation. They do not take any federal funds. They do not take any state funds because they refuse to basically follow civil rights legislation. I don't think that a public school board meeting should be the setting for these discussions, these bigger issues. I think we need to, as I said at the last meeting, focus on where we are right now, which is a fabulous place. And there's no need to consider these continued propositions that we tax ourselves twice. Who in here is a fiscal conservative? I don't like being taxed twice. That 3% that they would give to us does not come from their allowance. The 3% comes from the state again, which means, you know, it's 103%. Sorry, not a math major. We're doing super, it's a good year. Only one person showed up to talk about the charter school, so I'm assuming that it's not too much of an issue right now, but I would encourage you guys not to go there, not to put it on the agenda, not to bring up all of these controversies when we've got all the news is positive. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak this evening? The first call of the public is closed. We will move into board reports. At this time, I would like to invite Brian Bradford to step up. A few weeks ago, Mr. Anderson had inquired the meaning of the American flag. And in doing so, and in recognition of Patriot Week coming up, I thought it'd be appropriate to have Brian Bradford provide a presentation on the American flag and the history of it. Brian Bradford is a Senior Vice Commander of the Disabled American Veterans. He is here this evening to provide us with a presentation on the American flag. Additionally, Mr. Bradford was very instrumental in the construction of our Brighton Veterans Memorial, in addition to volunteering countless hours to our community on a regular annual basis. So, Mr. Bradford, please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Board. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. It is a privilege to be here. As you said, I am a United States Army disabled veteran, and one thing that's very sensitive to me is veterans, as well as speaking directly on regards to veterans and the military. With me, assisting me, is the VFW post that will be handling the flag details, so therefore I don't drop Old Glory. But let me go into it right away. And I apologize, we're going to try to cover 430 or 238 years of history in a matter of just about 10, 12 minutes. So I took the liberty of dropping off a few things that weren't so incidental. For over 200 years, the American flag has been the symbolic of our strength and our unity. Like our country, our flag also has seen changes. It has been a source of pride and inspiration throughout the world, and has been prominently an icon of our national history. Here are just some of the highlights. Today the original flag consisted of 13 stars and stripes. Today it's 50. The 50 stars indicate each one of the states individually. But what's important that most people don't understand is some of the symbolic meaning behind this. First off, the flag's symbolic nature of red symbolizes hardiness and valor. The white symbolizes purity and innocence. And the blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. All those things I believe we believe in today. Interesting enough, in 1775, the first flag that appeared actually was from New England states. The water had a liberty tree, and on top of it, it said, "An appeal to heaven." In 1775, for those people that are actually talking around the "Don't Tread on Me" sign, that's when it originally appeared on a plain red and white striped flag. In 1775, they also came out with the Sons of Liberty flag, which removed the serpent that was on it. It was just a plain red and white flag. They kept jockeying back and forth on what they wanted to do for a flag. I'm sorry, the people before me were vertically challenged. Try not to use that word short because my wife gets mad. In 1776, the Grand Union flag actually put the Union Jack on the upper left-hand corner of the flag with red and white stripes. And it wasn't until 1776 that Betsy Ross came up with our first flag. Ironically, there's absolutely no empirical evidence that she actually made the flag. It wasn't until 100 years later that her grandson actually made the claim. How many knew that? Go ahead, raise your hand. Not too many. In 1777, they actually came to an agreement, Congress, they seldom do come to an agreement on things, with the actual flag that you see today as being commonplace, with red and white stripes being 13, the amount of red and white stripes being 7 and 6, and then a blue background with the stars put in a circle. From there forward, in September of 1814, Francis Scott Key finally wrote the Star-Spangled Banner, but yet wasn't officially our anthem until 1931. No changes occurred until 1912, except in 1837 when we actually became a state. But for all you Michigan fans, Ohio was a state first. In 1812, the Pledge of Allegiance was first published in a magazine called the Youth's Companion, written by Francis Bellamy. In 1912, President Taft signed an executive order which establishes the proportions of the flag and the specific arrangements of the stars at that particular time. The flag code, which is, I see, commonly violated in residence homes and things of that fashion, was actually adopted in 1942 by the then President Roosevelt. One of the most common things you'll see is the flags that are flown outside in the dark with no light. That is actually a violation of the Federal Code 36 U.S.C. 171. If your flag's missing, I took it. In 1949, Truman signed a bill requesting the President's Day, or the President's Flag Day, be an observance of every year. And in 1954, the words "under God" were inserted into the Pledge of Allegiance. Gentlemen, if you want to start with the flag. In 1962, Engel Vital, the court decides that the government directly the prayer in public schools is unconstitutional and violates the Establishment Clause. This case is relevant from the fact that a precedent was set that opened up the debate of the under God, which was added to the Pledge of Allegiance in 1954. In 1969, the American flag was first placed on the moon. In 1974, the Supreme Court holds that the state of Washington could not convict a person for disgracing the flag by putting a peace sign on it. From 1970 to 1990, it was known as the desecration age. Several cases in the revision of the flag and the desecration of statutes by rule was given the First Amendment rights to be able to do that. I disagree. A constitutional amendment was attempted and failed, but over the last 30 years, regarding the First Amendment challenge and having challenges to the under the God or God being removed from the Pledge of Allegiance or our national anthem, the Supreme Court will not see the case. In fact, it's noted that the expression does not create the reasonable impression that government is sponsoring, endorsing, or inhibiting religion generally, or in favor, disfavoring, or any particular religion. The Pledge of Allegiance serves to unite this vast nation and a proud recitation of some of the ideals upon the republic with which we were found. Over history, certain traditions in military have crossed over into civilian lives and protocols that we use today. Some use to scare off the spirits, which is now called the 21-gun salute. Same traditions can be said with the meaning of the folds of the flag. Although there's 13 folds can only be done on a 5x9 flag, it's the most common size seen flown at the schools, municipalities, burial ceremonies. Post 4357, color guard will promptly fold the flag, while Dave Somerville tells you the story of the 13 folds.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, this is a U.S. flag folding ceremony. The flag folding ceremony represents the same religious principles on which our country was originally founded. The portion of the flag denoting honor is the cannon of the blue containing the stars representing the states our veterans served in uniform. In the Armed Forces of the United States, at the ceremony of retreat, the flag is lowered, folded into a triangle fold, and kept under watch throughout the night as a tribute to our nation's honored dead. The next morning it is brought out and at a ceremony of reveille, run aloft as a symbol of our belief in the resurrection of the body. The first fold of the flag represents the symbol of life. The second fold is a symbol of our belief in eternal life. The third fold is made in honor and remembrance of our veterans departing our ranks who gave a portion of his or her life for the defense of our country and to obtain peace throughout the world not to have been in vain and shall never be forgotten. The fourth fold represents our weaker nature, as for American citizens trusting in God, for in Him we turn in times of peace as well as in times of war for His divine guidance. The fifth fold is a tribute to our country. For the words of the immortal Stephen Decatur, our country, in dealing with our other countries, may she always be right, but it's still our country, right or wrong. The sixth fold, for this is where our hearts lie, and it is with our hearts that we pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The seventh fold is a tribute to our armed forces, for it is through these same armed forces that we protect our country and our flag against all her enemies, whether they be found within or without our boundaries of our republic. The eighth fold is a tribute to the one who entered the valley of the shadow of death that we might see the light of day, and this fold is made to honor Mother, for whom it flies on Mother's Day. The ninth fold is a tribute to womanhood, for it has been through their faith, love, and loyalty and devotion that the characters of men who have made this country great have been molded. The 10th fold is a tribute to Father, for he too has given his sons and daughters for defense of our country since he was first born. The 11th fold is for the eyes of the Hebrew citizen. This represents the lower portion of the seal of King of David and King Solomon, and glorifies in their eyes the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. The 12th fold, for the eyes of Christian citizen, this represents an emblem of eternity and glorifies in their eyes God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost. The 13th fold represents completeness, and the stars are uppermost, which reminds us of our national motto, "In God We Trust." After the flag is completely folded and tucked in, it takes on the appearance of a cocked hat, ever reminding us of our soldiers who served under General George Washington, and the sailors and Marines who served under Captain John Paul Jones, who were followed by their comrades and shipmates in the armed forces of the United States, preserving for us the rights, privileges we have this day.
The history of our country's heritage is important. It helps us pass on why certain customs, how we got here, and why it's important to never forget the sacrifice of our forefathers they made for this country. To date, there's over 1,006,000 soldiers that have died, 88,000 still classified as missing in action. These brave soldiers paid incredible prices to give women the right to vote, free slaves, and give citizens equal voice without persecution. Men like Bob Scranton, World War II hero. I was proud enough to help lay his brick in a memorial. He dedicated decades to this district and helped lay the foundation that we see before us. People like Lyle Powers, who served in the Pacific Rim in World War II, has a long family history in Brighton schools. And even current veterans that are on the school staff right now, like Adam Newman, and Coach Marsh, and many more. To not teach these vital history disgraces the heroes and shames them for standing up for the weak. It is our duty and yours to keep their memories alive and talk about why they did what they did to keep us free. The flag represents hardiness, valor, purity, innocence, vigilance, perseverance, and justice. All those things we should embody in ourselves and should we teach the next generation. Myself and every one of us veterans behind you call on you, the board, to teach this to the next generation and include it as part of the curriculum. And just for correction, we do not live in a democracy. We live in a republic. Thank you.
Mr. President and Board, could I add one thing? If any of you guys at your schools need a flag, contact us. We'll be gladly to come and put it up and give it to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. We greatly appreciate your presentation this evening, and as always, we are very grateful for your service to our country. Thank you. If you wish, we are about to, I'm sorry, we do have more board correspondence at this time, but anybody who wishes is feel free to be excused. Additional board reports. Mr. Conley?
A couple things. Recently, we had, kind of fits right in with what went on here tonight, but Miles View had lost his mother last week. And the Conley family, the Armand family, which is my mom's side, we're fortunate to know the View family for 5 generations, from my great-grandfather, my grandfather, my mother, myself, and then my children. And Miles's mother, Hazel, was wife of a Navy man, and they were married during World War II. And I think it was appropriate tonight. They talked about the 8th fold in honor of mothers for whom the flag flies on Mother's Day. The 9th fold is a tribute to womanhood. The faith of love and loyalty and devotion of women helped to mold the character of countless men and women who have made this nation great. His mother, like I said, I knew her for 51 years and was a great lady. And his father the same. And the interesting thing was, like, when my wife and I were first married, we were real busy. We had a new company, and I don't want to say I had to leave my wife at home, but I did. And, well, Hazel lived next door, Miles's mother, and realized the situation at our house, and who was the first one to be there with this wife of a Navy man. And she showed up there, and she helped my wife take care of our first son, and nobody asked her. Nobody did anything, and she, you know, she told, we were telling some stories at the funeral, but she told my wife that she was spoiling my son. And it was cute because my wife wouldn't put him down. So, but Hazel, you know, helped us start our family. And in this family at the lake environment that Hazel kind of oversaw for these 5 generations in a way, from being a young person all the way to her adulthood, was quite a time. And we were very fortunate to have her, and I wanted to share that with you. And Miles comes from a real strong local family, and they were very good people to us and my family. And then on to, I brought this, and it's a really nice thing, and I think I passed a couple around to the flag. But I have a couple things to talk about on business, but Miles is going to start it. And about some information that we got when we were at the state of Michigan and we wanted to share some stuff about board responsibilities. Thank you.
Mr. View?
That was very thoughtful, John. I know Hayes was probably smiling down at you right now. All 4'9" of her.
Yes, Irish, boy, I'm telling you.
A couple meetings ago, we were talking about some things, and somebody made a comment. I don't know exactly how it was presented, but why is the board doing that? We let the staff and the kids decide. And I just wanted to bring to the attention something that happened when the school district was subpoenaed up to the state of Michigan. There were quite a few of us here. Dr. Gray was there, Maria. I believe it was Mr. Conley, Mr. Conley, I think Ms. Lafferty was there, and a few others. But anyway, there was some conversation, and I can't tell you exactly what the conversation was, but my response was, well, we let Dr. Gray and his staff do that, and that's their decision. Well, I kind of got chastised by the assistant Department of Education and also our state rep.
Pardon me?
She was a deputy superintendent. But they said, Mr. View, that's not true. You, the Board of Education, are solely responsible. You're responsible for the finances, you're responsible for the operation, you're responsible for the curriculum, what's in the curriculum, and so on. And I said I was surprised because I was always told that the Board of Education was to set policy and to make sure that our finances were in order. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to pass some information out, which I did, to the board, just so that they could see it. And I just wanted to bring it up to them that I was wrong in what I thought my responsibilities were. They made it quite clear that we're responsible for everything that happens here. So when you hear the Board of Education maybe not agree with some people, it's because that's what we think is right. And we're not always right. But we do listen to people. We listen to Dr. Gray. We listen to Maria, Dr. Suri, principals, teachers, students. But when we make that final decision, we make it because that's what we think is right. So I just wanted to bring that up to the public and to the board. And that was all based on what was told to us.
Thank you, Mr. View. Mr. Conley?
Yeah, as a follow-up to that, I wanted to thumb through these pages that we included in the board packet, and it talks about board responsibilities. We hit them lightly last board meeting, but I'd like to look on the bottom of page 4, which is the first page, and it talks about what are some of the powers and duties of local school board. And it says, under Michigan law, Board of Education has the ultimate responsibility for the school district operations, among other things, the revised school code, which gives each board member, each Board of Education general powers too. Next page. Provide safety and welfare of students, acquire and dispose of school property, which we do without any problems with. We have management working back and forth. Determine matters relating to school employees and contractors. That's going pretty well the last several years. Control the expenditures and receipt of school funds. We have an excellent superintendent of finance who's advising us, and we're looking at her work, and it's going well. Make joint agreements and cooperative arrangements. That's going. He's doing all kinds of things out there, from selling the school to whatever it takes. And then specifically, though, setting curricula and courses taught in schools. Now, for a long time here in Brighton, when I came on the school board, I was told all I could do was adhere to what the superintendent told us to do. It's not accurate. And this was before Dr. Gray's time. And it was also, well, it just started when he was starting, actually. Cheryl Leach was our board president, and I was being interned by Cheryl and explained how process was done, and she said basically, you know, you're not really an original thinker here, you just basically need to look at what they advise, and if you like it, you approve it. And I started to look at it, and I disagreed with Cheryl when she told me that, right then. I said, I disagree. But I didn't know all the details, and really, I had read through the stuff, but I didn't get it until I was at the state of Michigan in the meeting with our deficit elimination plan. It was a great time. It was hard for our school district, but it was a great time, I think, for board members as we bring this information back to let the elected officials know in the school board what their responsibilities and duties are. And it falls under the state constitution. It's no joke. This is what the board members' responsibilities are. They are responsible for the daily operation of the school. That's it. And, you know, some board members say, well, you know, we can't go and who wants to do this or who's going to open the door and who's going to change the door locks. That is totally true. That's what the management does, the school system. Putting that simply, he does way more than that, obviously, our superintendent. But in a general sense, who opens the doors? He takes care of all that. And it also talks about, is the Board of Education responsible for private schools or charter schools? Well, they can be. And in the state of Michigan, there was a time that certain governments that were running in our state government wanted to not even have a charter school. And just by chance, I sat next to the assistant to our attorney general, just by luck one day, just recently, within the last 2 weeks. And she talked a little about the charter schools and talked about how important they were to the state because they fall under the Constitution. And she said that what she told this group who didn't want to have the charter schools in the state of Michigan, she said is that, I'll give you 24 hours to decide. If you decide you don't want them, then we're going to be okay. Or that you don't want them, then we won't protect you. The state of Michigan will not defend you. You'll pay all your own legal fees. She said, if you want to change your mind in what you're saying, we'll back you up. So obviously, charter schools stayed. And our Constitution, the state of Michigan, was reinforced by our Attorney General's chief. And she survived many Attorney Generals. So that empowered me again. I got to thinking, what is our obligation here? So, and going down the bottom of page 5, in addition, boards of education are bound by provisions of the state and federal constitutions and laws designed to protect the rights of people. We have in front of us a situation. There are people that would like to have a school in a school that we own. As a school board, it isn't if it's going to create a competition for our school. It isn't any of that at all. It's if that's what the people of this community want. It's this board's obligation to give it to them. And should you decide not to give it to them, read the MCL laws, and if you say that you can go against what people of this community want, I would differ with that. It is our obligation. And if the school fails, that's the other thing. It's not up to us if the school fails or makes it. If we do our part, and if the superintendent accepts it, and we ask him to do it, he'll do an excellent job in the leadership position of what he's asked to do. That's not an issue. But if the school didn't make it for some reason and people didn't go there, that's not the fault of the board, that's not the fault of this community, it's because that's not what the people wanted, and that's the risk that the investors take. It's not up for us to decide that. It's up for the population to decide if it's the school that they want. So, in a nutshell, our local school boards needed, bottom of page 6. The United States Supreme Court has said education is perhaps the most important function of the state and local governments. Our system of local school districts and boards, I ran on there, sorry about that, state and local governments, period. Our system of local school districts and boards of education epitomizes, what's that, is that right? Yes, okay. Representative and participatory government, citizens elected from their community, making decisions about educational programs based on community needs, values, and expectations. So here we are. We're at a decision-making time, kind of. And I think that I'd like to, move forward that we put the opportunity for the charter school at least on for discussion at the next board meeting. And then if the board decides to move it up for a vote, then that's up to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connolly. Mr. View?
Yeah, I just want to make it clear, my point here in bringing this up had nothing to do with the charter school. It was what our duties were as a whole. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. View.
One more thing.
Mr. Conway.
I was given this book, Schools Cannot Do It Alone. In chapter 10, it's on page 82. I think Laura gave these to us, didn't you, Laura? A few years ago?
Joyce Powers.
Joyce gave them to us. Okay. Well, and it says here, we cannot solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. That's from Albert Einstein.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. There are additional board reports. Mr. Anderson.
First of all, off of a hard topic onto an easy one. I've got to say, I've got to commend staff. I was in Spencer Friday, a week before we opened, and I walked in and I went, oh my goodness. I don't think those were the words I used, but boxes everywhere, workmen everywhere. Margaret's room was a story high of boxes, and I went, how is this ever going to open? I showed up the Wednesday before we opened, and I'm going, well, a lot of progress has been made, but still stuff all over the place. Friday before we opened, I'm going, all right, the classrooms look like they're in order, but it's really tough to walk down the hallways. There was so much stuff in the hallways, stacked and piled, and boxes that were on skids. And they made it. I wasn't able to get in on Tuesday on opening day. I got in Wednesday, and I walked into Spencer, and it was like, I can't believe that this place looks like a school. I mean, the media center was all set up. I'm not going to say it was completely functional, but it looked like a media center.
It was also a good thing you weren't there on Tuesday when you were unpacking.
Yeah. I talked to one of the custodial staff, and I'm going, okay, I saw tons of material in the hallway, and I saw the dumpsters outside. I said, how did that stuff get into the dumpsters? And he's going, it is amazing what happened. I know Horning was probably in much the same scenario, and I'm going to guess those two buildings were the biggest challenges.
Maltby and Hawkins.
Well, Maltby was further ahead. I visited them a couple of times, and it was like they were very laid back over at Maltby compared to last year, but it was absolutely amazing what happened in that last week in terms of everything. And when I say staff, I've got to say every single person, and probably siblings and husbands and anybody else that could probably recruit to come into those buildings to get them ready to open up. So that was the fun stuff. This is an interesting discussion in terms of interpretive readings. Now, for instance, the document that we have before us is a document from the Michigan Association of School Boards, and is designed to give a layman's guide to the reading of law. For instance, when, it's obviously, this is designed to be read by school board members. So it's very much geared towards saying school board members. Now, when you go into the actual law, for instance, these things, for instance, are, and I have to admit, I was looking for the curriculum-specific language, but unfortunately, after a half hour of looking, I gave up on that. But what I did find was, for instance, the law regarding the general powers of a school district, okay? So the law talks about the general powers of a school district and that they have all the rights, powers, and duties expressly stated in the Act, which is basically saying, we, the state of Michigan, are giving you this authority as a governmental entity. And it goes on to say, A, one of the duties of the school district, and the authorities of the school district is educating pupils. And if you read at the bottom of 4, you'll see it starts off with educating pupils. Providing for the safety, health, and welfare, acquiring, constructing, maintaining, repairing, hiring, contracting, receiving, accounting, and investing the money. You'll notice that that follows what they're doing here. This is an interpretation of the law. Now, the law is talking about that is what this government entity does. It isn't saying directly, you school board member do this. It is saying that the school district does this. It then goes in to say the general powers of the school district are a corporate body, and the board of the general powers school district shall adopt bylaws. And these bylaws may establish or change board procedures. So what it's talking about when you look at, and I think this is where the debate came in, is yes, we have, as it says, ultimate responsibility. But we've also put into place how things are to get done. So for instance, when it says that we are responsible for hiring, which we're going to do tonight, we create a procedure that brings a recommendation to us in terms of who to hire. When we talk about going out for a bond, we have a procedure to bring a recommendation before us, and we work on that through that recommendation. In other words, we put a structure in place to bring things to us. And as I said before, one of the concerns I have is that when we go in to do something, either we do it and do it right, or we leave our procedures to do it. And to me, one of the concerns I have, especially when we start getting into saying, oh, well, we want this in our curriculum, is that, again, I question who had the background to go in and say, number one, what were we teaching? Number two, what is going to be taught? And number three, what was not going to be taught because we were going to teach something else? We have procedures in place in the school district for establishing that, just as we have procedures for all those other responsibilities that we have. And we do depend on many other people to bring those recommendations to us. So I do get concerned when we circumvent those procedures and do it on only a basis of having partial knowledge and not knowing exactly what the consequences of those actions are. Those are my concerns.
Bill, if I can just piggyback on that. That was something I brought up in Lansing. And they said, that, Mr. View, you're ultimately the one responsible. Those procedures could be inaccurate, could be old, or what have you, or not updated. Of course, again, I said, I was always under the assumption that you were responsible for the finances and policy. But it goes way beyond that, and they made it quite clear to us. And that's all we're trying to bring to the board, is that if our constituents, the public out there, want something done in their school, that's our responsibility also to make it happen. We take in information from the superintendent, from Dr. Suri, teachers, students, parents, but there are other people outside of the school district also that we have to listen to. And I just felt it was important to bring it up because I didn't know that when they told me that up in Lansing. And I don't think a lot of other board members knew that. So.
Thank you, Mr. View. Mr. Conway?
So, Bill, another thing on this, on page 5 of our little handout, And it talks about bringing up just what you were saying. When making decisions, school boards seek the advice, counsel of the district's administrators, or he brings it to us and we do the same back and forth. Teachers and other employees, as well as input from the community and specialists with the knowledge about the topic under consideration. Dr. Suri in our CTE wing in our automotive program, how many kids are in that classroom now?
120.
120? Okay, all right, from 60. Our health occupations class is full. There's not a seat left. That's what we're supposed to do. That was my expertise, our expertise. I looked at it, came to the board, we researched it. These guys, we got a contractor, we got a guy that's all over stuff that's good for kids. We got Miles, who's the historian and been in the school his whole life, including me as well. I was in that school, I graduated in 1980. Okay, so that's what we're supposed to do. I'm very proud of our school board. I'm very proud that they're looking out for what kids need. And I hear what we're doing in our middle schools and our grade schools. You know what? Hands down, those professional teachers are organizing that. And me as a board member, they got my 100% support. Bring it on. Right? Okay, so that's what it says. Now, in addition, boards of education are bound by provisions of the state and federal constitutions and laws designed to protect the rights of people. You see something that's not protecting the rights of your people, you're bound by the state constitution to fix it. That's it. You took the job. That's what you have to do. And what we learned in the state was down here, if you look on page 16, which is like sheet number 5, but it says 16 on the bottom, there's an MCL number. This was regarding a deficit plan. A school official or member of a board or other person who neglects or refuses to do or perform an act required by this act, or who violates or knowingly consents to the violation of this act is guilty of a misdemeanor. This talks about budgeting. This talks about voting for things that put the district in deficit. There's a misdemeanor for that, and it's 90 days in jail if you want to get prosecuted for it. We're not allowed to do it. And we're not going to do it. Ever again. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Conley. Any additional board reports or correspondence at this time? Mrs. Minor.
I just want to make something I mentioned to you that I'd like to thank. This piggybacks on to Mr. Anderson's first comment. I'd like to thank, really, as he said, the staff, but also thank the EAs who came to the schools on the opening days on their own time without pay. It was not on their schedule to help the students and the teachers adjust to that first day.
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Minor. Mr. View.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the entire staff and administration also, because I, like Mr. Anderson, walked into the school and went, whoa. And my mother was in the hospital, and it was on my mind while I was sitting there trying to think of other things, and I'd go, boy, I wonder if Dr. Gray's going to make it. And him and his staff, and I called him once and said, how's it going, Greg? Are you going to make it? Oh, we're fine. We'll make it. That's a good leader, because he had no doubt whatsoever. And the staff love him, and they get in the ditches anytime with him. And I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. View. Any additional board reports? Thank you for the reports this evening. Especially thank you, Mr. Conley, for sharing your knowledge regarding the duties of the Board of Education. We will head into the business portion of the meeting with the 4 action items. 4 action item A. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of August 25th, 2014 as presented?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Conley, supported by Mr. Trombley. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is approved.
Stay.
I'm sorry. Yes. Mr. View abstains. Motion is approved. 5-0. Is there a motion to approve policies 5112, 5330.01, 5517, and 8420 as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Trombley. Supported by Mrs. Minor. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Is there a motion to approve the resignations as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tremblay. Supported by Mrs. Minor. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Is there a motion to approve the new hires as presented? Moved by Mrs. Minor. Supported by Mr. Tremblay. Any discussion?
Dr. Gray, is this a replacement?
Yes, we sit presently at 293.4. We budgeted 294. It looks like we'll lose a .4 because we have a teacher out on a medical leave, but we'll probably add 2 more .1s based on enrollment, 1 in music, and Henry, the other one in, .1 in music and .1 in...
We just don't need that .1 anymore, but we're like, that covered.
All right, .1 in music might be the only one left. So we think we'll end about 293.1-ish. We budgeted 294. Which is good because when we present numbers here in a couple of weeks, we have what looks like presently positive news in terms of holding enrollment, school of choice, all that good stuff. So that's what we're
Wait until you see the whites of their eyes, right?
I'm not. Everybody keeps asking me. We did a count on Friday. I usually feel pretty confident about that count. We've gotten much better at it over the last, I would say, 3-4 years. We're picking, I like to pick it clean before we get to the point where we present it to you. And we have some part-time students out there. We just want to make sure all of them are good. But I would say our early indicators are that our enrollment in district is holding strong at that 6,000 mark that we were shooting for.
Thank you, Dr. Gray. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is approved, 6-0. There are no 4 future action items this evening. For information, curriculum, and instruction, Dr. Suri.
Thank you. I wanted to take a moment and thank the Hawkins staff and the Scranton staff earlier for presenting. They will be back later this year with some updates, bringing some data to show student growth as the year goes on, and we'll also hear from our other buildings. And you know, it's a very complicated, actually, machine that is in each building that moving, defining the goals and how we're going to move those goals forward through strategies and activities. And many people are involved at all different levels. One of the things that was mentioned up there tonight was our RTI model, which is response to intervention. And some really thoughtful EAs recently pointed out to me that I never mentioned them. And I thought, well, I think I do, but I'm going to make sure I mention them tonight because they really are the backbone of our, when we focus on the bottom 25%, and when I say the bottom 25%, that's achievement, so showing academic needs. They're the ones that deliver the interventions. They plan those interventions. We may purchase the materials they use, but they have to, they progress monitor, test their students, and they put together the right interventions. So these are highly trained and educated ladies, all of them. Across the district, there's 16 at the elementary, 4 at Maltby, 3 at Scranton, and also, I think, 2 at the high school. And anyways, they do a lot for us, and so I just wanted to kind of lift that up for you guys this evening for the board. Also, Patriot Week coming up. Until this year, we always called it Constitution Day, which is a national holiday, Constitution Day and Citizenship Day. And our social studies classes in grades 5 through 12 have always commemorated 9/11, so that's coming up this week, and I've been in communication with the principals and the social studies departments in those buildings about that. And then Constitution Day on the 17th. So already I worked today with the media specialists up here. We were being trained in Safari Montage, which is a really exciting new video streaming, but it's much more than that. It really overtly simplifies what it is. But we were training that today with the focus of let's see what we can pull together for Constitution Day, Citizenship Day, and make sure that starting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of next week leading up to the 17th, there are a lot of resources out there for our especially K4, and then another set for 5, 8, and then the high school. So hopefully, they will find that there's a lot of resources, and we're looking forward to that. And that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Suri. Mr. Conlon.
I did see an announcement in the Friday letter, and I like, again, back to what our school is doing. I appreciate Dr. Gray and your work on it, Laura. I think it's very important. I saw Dr. Gray kind of set some of it home to the parents and said, this is kind of what we're looking at. Think about it. I can kind of visualize what you're talking about when you're writing that, and whoever wrote it, all of you together, though. You know, and that was, I think, very good for our district, and I think it's a great start. So thank you for looking at it and giving our parents and students kind of a signal. You can run with it. Thank you.
Mr. View.
Yeah, Laura, with the technology that we now have, just an idea, what would be kind of neat is if maybe we could take some classes and maybe talk to another country, another school district in another country, and just kind of compare how they live and we live, and just to give our people a better appreciation for what we have, and maybe let some, kids elsewhere know what it's about here. We already do? Oh, good. Sometime, if you share it, I'd like to sit in if you wouldn't mind. I always wanted to do that. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. View. Finance, Dr. Gistinger.
Yes, good evening, Board. You'll find in your packet the bills for this board meeting, and then also we got a call from our financial advisors. We have a small bond issue that's getting ready to get paid off, but it can be refinanced before it gets paid off, and it's about $3.7 million. If we were to refinance it at current rates, we'll save our taxpayers about $300,000. Since it's such a small refunding, we have decided not to go the underwriter route. We would rather just create an RFP and see if we can solicit a refinancing through a bank. If you can recall, when we took our $89 million to market, we were selling them to commercial banks. Government bonds are very attractive to keep in bank portfolios because, for all intents and purposes, they guarantee a return and they're considered safe. And so to go and sell $3.7 million all at once is not that big of a deal because they were buying them in chunks of like $10 million. This is sort of like a baby refinance, and to go with this route, we will save a ton of money in our underwriting fees. So I'll be bringing that forward to you once that is prepared.
Okay.
And there's a strong possibility the year after next, we probably could maybe pay it off.
Probably not that issue.
Services.
We're chasing down the energy bond that's a burden on the general fund.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would say that's the.
We need to tackle the energy bond.
That is callable in May of 15, so that's a discussion for, it's coming upon us, but in a bit. And we can refund that in chunks as well. I wasn't sure, but I checked. I thought maybe we had to bite it all off at once, but that's not the case.
What is due on the energy bond?
Is it 2?
No, it's a lot. It runs out to 2020, and I think it's about $500,000 a year and probably $100,000 in interest.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of after 15.
We can call it in May of 15 in chunks.
I mean, it's about $450,000 a year, $500,000.
About $500,000 a year.
Yeah, so about $3 million, just shy of $3 million, yeah.
What are we getting from that now?
Pardon me?
What are we getting from that?
We don't get anything from
Just
it.
checking.
That money got used up years ago, prior to any of our, well, a couple people were here.
Energy bond since then, I believe.
There will never be another energy bond.
Thank you, Dr. Gistinger. Dr. Gray, Superintendent of Human Resources.
Two things really quickly. Obviously, you saw the hires tonight. Great job by HR staff and the opening of school. I wouldn't disagree at all. It's my third bond that I've had 2 in previous district that I've passed, and this one as well. And I usually forget, like you're talking, Bill, I usually forget at the beginning of August that it all wraps up, and I go into panic attack the August 1st, but after I scream at Dennis for a while, he's fine, and it all comes back around. So, yeah, they did a great job. Can't tell you the number of times we were in buildings, looking at stuff, myself, Mr. Trombley, and others as well. It was very, very busy. Can't say enough about staff. It's difficult. I mean, we renovated almost every building this summer, completely too. They're gutted. And if you think about it, that's well over 400 houses if you were going to renovate typical square footage. If you've ever renovated a room in your house, try a whole house, or try 400 at the same time. So it was dramatic, 30 million bucks, came in under budget. We only had one timing issue with some cabinetry, and it was only because of the fact that the company that was going to manufacture it got bought out by another company, and it went into total disarray. It should be coming in this weekend and next, and we have a good plan in place to install that. But it was cabinetry we didn't have in the past anyway, so it's new. I wish they would have completed it, but they have a good plan in place. We plan on beating the heck out of the company that didn't get done in time. So one more summer of it. Next summer, just under 20 million. The bulk of it will be at the high school. Don't drive by the high school next summer. It will be difficult to enter. The parking lot will be new. The front will be new. Interior finishes will be new. The pool will be complete. And on, HVAC, and on and on and on and on. So that is going to be a really challenging summer, but we'll get it done. Again, and that should wrap up the large majority of the bond. There's still about a $4 million sale that we need to make. I wouldn't recommend going out and selling that for another 2 or 3 years. Pushes us to the very end, because that's the re-influx of technology, and once we sell it, we also have a time frame that we can wait to spend it within. So let's let what we bought presently live its lifespan and push that $4 million out for loose equipment after the fact. I just want that in the minutes in case someday I'm not here. So I don't want anybody to screw it up. So that will be great. But again, I cannot thank enough. I mean, people put in a lot of time. There were people with 200 boxes, 300 boxes, and our custodians did a wonderful, wonderful job, and everybody else did as well. So thank you to everybody. On a note of a screw-up, go from a good thing to a bad thing, we messed up last time under for action on Tony Greathouse. We were supposed to put him at step 3. We put him at step 1. He had previous year's experience. We caught it after the fact, so I'd like to move him to step 3 unless there's objections. It's just under a $3,000 difference. It's what he was making when he was at community ed. That's why the job looked attractive to him, doing a wonderful job in our phys ed department. We just screwed it up, so we'd like to move him to step 3.
Consensus on that?
Yeah, I'll take a consensus. I have no issues with it. It is what Dr. Gray said.
Typically, we can make those adjustments because it falls in our budget. We just don't want to do it without, we want to be completely transparent.
Does it need a vote?
No, what we'll do is I'll take a consensus, but it really doesn't. But yeah, the compensation will be identical, actually, a couple dollars off from what.
$15.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, he'll be making actually a couple dollars less than what he made last year. So it's. But is there any objection to moving forward with adjusting his step from 1 to 3? No objection, Dr. Gray. You may move forward on that.
Thank you.
Any additional reports on your behalf?
Nope, not tonight. Other than if you want me to introduce, I know one of the 2 students, but.
I can.
Or do you want to do both?
I can take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gray. And student representatives, this evening we are very fortunate to have both our student representatives here. We have Mike, who is representing the Bridge High School, and then we have Bethany as well, who is representing the Brighton High School. At this time, Mike, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Mike Myers. I'm a junior at Bridge Alternative High School. I'm also a member of the Michigan Alternative Education Organization STARS team. Our open house is September 18th, 6 to 7 p.m. We welcome you to come meet our staff and look around the building. We're glad to be participating again this year in the Mayo STARS Leadership Conference kickoff October 18th, or 17th, my bad. And I appreciate this privilege to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
And Bethany.
All right. Hi, my name is Bethany Warren. I'm a senior at Brighton High School. I'm in the leadership program, and I am truly honored to be in this position. I was told that I should give a brief report about what we're doing at Brighton High School right now. So, first of all, the first week of school was awesome. We got so many, I've heard so many positive statements from kids, and people are excited for this next year. Things are looking great around the district. I know my little brother and sister are enjoying benefits of what's going on with bond. BCom ran smooth. The students met with their freshmen. Everything went really well. I really liked the half day where the freshmen came in and then the other students came in at 12. That was really nice. And then, so homecoming's up next for us. Leadership picked Spirit Days, and we're starting to plan. The theme of homecoming this year is Light Up the World. We've been planning Pink Week a little bit more. We were talking about that in leadership today. We're trying to get more community involvement than we have before in previous years. Just trying to get new ideas, fresh thoughts. We have lots of ideas, and we haven't solidified anything yet, but we're really excited about it and looking forward to this next year.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us. Yeah, Mr. Conlon, or Dr. Gray?
I had one thing for Dr. Gray.
Okay, Mr. Conlon?
Yeah, Dr. Gray, in recent weeks, have you met with the charter school people regarding ideas and different things?
Yes.
Okay, and how is that going?
The last time I had a couple of board members come in was actually Mr. Anderson and Ms. Minor.
Okay.
Mr. Kraus could not be there. I think he was out of the country that day. And they were able to discuss it with them. And then we left that meeting, and I brought up some things to the charter school that they hadn't thought about. So I think they were going to look into that. And I haven't heard anything since.
Okay. Thank you.
If you could, Dr. Gray, well, I guess knowingly it's not your responsibility, but you could just keep tabs on their progress, of course, and so we have a timeline in terms of...
I'm just curious on the financing in that, those timelines. They have met the original earnest money deposit and those small pieces that go along with any of the contract, just like the builders did. Other than that, I don't foresee really anything else happening until they determine whether or not they have financing.
Mr. Conlon?
Well, that's where I would have my next request again, as I said earlier, is I'd like to have them on for future action for discussion purposes of the board. And if we decide as a district that we're going to oversee / sponsor the charter. And so, and time is an element for that situation, but I'd like the board to make a decision on it, and we can do that.
Let me talk to the charter on that. The information I gave them last time, they might decide not to do that. So if we charter them, we can also accrete their teachers from MERC, which would mean they fall under our contract. So that they might, I know after I met with John.
It's John, yes.
Yep, and we talked specifically about that. They were very concerned in relation to that. Because we would be the district, and the district has groups in it, and groups can accrete other groups within a particular district. So I don't think that fits into their particular business model, and so I think they were going back to doing some checking. I haven't heard from them since on that. So I'm kind of waiting to hear. I won't hear from Pat. Pat really has nothing to do with that.
Right.
He's a landowner. But I'm waiting to hear from John, because I don't, like I said, I don't believe when we talked about that they felt favorably about that in the least.
Well, I see Mr. Streetman's out in the audience tonight. Maybe he could call the public and address that situation.
And maybe he could.
Okay, it's up to. Okay, thank you.
At this time, we will open up the second call to the public. If anybody wishes to speak, you will have 3 minutes. Please state your name.
I'm Margaret Adams. I'm the media specialist at Spencer and Hilton, and I just wanted to go back to Mr. Anderson's comments when he walked in the building on that Friday and he walked into the media center and there were literally boxes piled high on my stage because we had over 700 boxes of books that still had to go on the brand new shelves that still had some adjusting to do. So on that Tuesday, we cranked it all out, and by 7 o'clock that Tuesday night, we had them all back on the shelf. So it was awesome collaboration among the district. We did the same thing at Horning on the Friday before that. Nicole did the same thing at Hawkins the week before. So the bond, my children actually went to Spencer, so I've been a member of our community for 25 years. My kids went K-12 through Brighton schools, but they were at Spencer when I walked in after working there for 14 years. After being a mom there for 20 years, I went, whoa, this is not even the same school. So it's been wonderful, and thanks to all of the community support for the bond for getting us to that point. I'm extremely excited as a media specialist with all the new technology coming in. You know, of course, with new technology, there's going to be hiccups, but like Dr. Suri said today, we spent the day learning the new video streaming, and it was absolutely amazing. We're just so excited to get it back to our staffs, let them know what's going to be happening. Just wonderful things happening in our schools. I did want to comment, one thing I didn't understand was there was a comment made earlier that our community wants the charter. I don't quite understand that because the person that was standing up here earlier talking about the charter mentioned that the students were from Linden, from Fenton, from surrounding areas. I didn't hear her say one Brighton student. So I don't quite understand how our community wants it, nor do I understand how our board would be there saying this is our community that wants this. Your community elected you, your community is Brighton. I did not hear Brighton mentioned as possible students for there. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Dick Streetman. I'm representing the Board of Education for Lindbaum Classical Academy. We have a plan to hire our teachers through Responsive Education Solutions. So that would be a third party who would actually be employing our teachers. So they would not be employed through the Brighton School District. I'm not sure if that helps clarify or if there's more to that issue that you're concerned about.
Again, we didn't tell them that they couldn't, but you need to understand under state of Michigan law, if my understanding, the interpretation that I received was if we charter it, not the school system, but the teachers union would have the right to petition the Merck board in relation to that. Now, I don't care about the legalities of that, to be quite honest with you. I just thought John should know that prior to that. So that's kind of where we left it.
Right, and John should have come back and readdress that issue. And that's one of the things I wanted to make sure of tonight, is that when you're dealing with a third-party employer, that teachers do not put into the retirement system, and therefore they are not part of that situation that we're concerned about.
And it's not really our concern.
Right.
It would be more of your concern.
Yes.
And again, we only let John know as a courtesy. He can do the research himself if he chooses. And then we go from there. So John, after we talked about this, said he'd get back with me. Presently, he has not gotten back with me. And so that's where we have it tonight, that's the only update.
Okay. Well, John couldn't be here tonight, so I wanted to be able to be here for that. And the last comment that was just made about coming from a Brighton resident, the lady who spoke earlier here at length about wanting a Lindbaum Classical Academy to become a reality is a Brighton resident whose kids went through the Brighton School District. So we are hearing from community members who are familiar with the Brighton schools and their good reputation that still would like to see this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Streetman.
I just want to mention that Mr. Streetman's answer really raises more questions than it resolves. If you're going through responsible party solutions, then some of the questions that I was asking of the board during our previous board meeting need extra scrutiny, because if we're going through responsible party solutions, they will not make anything available to the public. They will not reveal the salaries they pay. They will not reveal what they pay contractors to do work. Every penny that will be spent in that building will be opaque. And we will be chartering that lack of transparency. And I can tell you for sure that the community will not be happy with that. We absolutely have to see where our tax dollars are going.
Thank you.
Hi, Brian Bradford. I want to speak actually to Patriot Week. I don't know if you know you have a very veteran-rich community. Within this community, the Brighton area community, there's close to 15,000 veterans. Ones like, for example, Don Burgett. Don Burgett actually lives in Howell, but he's a friend of mine. He's one of the most decorated veterans in this community. Matter of fact, the Band of Brothers movies were written based on his books, that we can produce him into your classroom and actually bring history to your classroom. We also have, actually in the Brighton community, the founder of the Civil Air Patrol was a World War II veteran. So during Patriot Week, there are a lot of veterans walking around that I could put you in touch with, the VFW, the American Legion, what have you, that would welcome the opportunity. These guys love sharing their stories and passing that on to the next generation. So please include those people into it, because sometimes it's the last chance they have to tell that story. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bradford.
I'm Dave Chesney from 5245 Milroy Lane, and I have 3 daughters who've come up through Brighton area schools. And I was going to talk about school board issues, but I thought I'd talk about parenting a little bit first. And one of the things that I realized quickly with my kids when they were young was actions and consequences. And they knew that the actions that they took would result in either positive or negative consequences. So if they promised to be home at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, and they were home before 10 o'clock, then the next time they asked and wanted to come home at 10:30, we'd say yes. And if they came home after 10, and the next time they asked, we'd say no. So the idea is action and consequence. And that plays into the idea of autonomy and accountability. You give a little more freedom, but you hold the people responsible for that freedom. And that's just good parenting. And that actually applies for those of you who might be small business owners. That applies in business too. You have this employee that's a great employee. They do a nice job for you. You give them more flexibility. You hold them a little more accountable. With all of that in mind, I've heard time and time again, and I deeply agree with how wonderful of a job Dr. Gistinger and Dr. Surrey and Dr. Gray are doing. And I think we all agree with that. I mean, I think that's a universal. We look at the schools, how they're being built up. They're getting better and better. We look at, the numbers for the budget. It's better and better every single year. We look at the numbers for the schools. They're better and better every year. And so, to me, what that would indicate then is you let the people who are qualified to do their job do their job. You don't look for ways of constraining them more. The whole idea of let we, the school board, wrest more control over what those who are in the know are doing, I think is frankly absurd. The whole idea is if things are going well and if the direction is going positive, then you do whatever you possibly can to support that positive momentum, not to change it and to put further constraints on it. Action and consequence, autonomy and accountability, it plays in at home, it plays in business, and it plays in the school district. And like I said, I just think it's simply wrong to try to constrain direction that is just so utterly positive in so many different ways. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak at this time?
Also, with what Mr. Chesney said, let's just remember that we are in the catbird seat, that we've accomplished a lot, and that it is time to enjoy what we've accomplished, not bring controversy into the board, bring litigation into our school system, and remove transparency and introduce opaqueness. All the things we talked about today. Dr. Gray actually went to the trouble of asking for an extra $3,000 because you guys accidentally made it step 1 instead of step 3 for a faculty member. That is the kind of discussion that does not need to happen if you go through a privatized company that answers to a board that isn't elected. There's a reason why I was trying to explain democracy. And when I say federalism and democracy, that's what somebody meant by republic. But anyway, in this system of federalism and in this democracy that we have, we run our own schools and we run them through representative government. The charter school movement is about removing those obstacles. The charter school movement is about increasing the power of the executive at the expense of the legislative. The charter school movement is about running a school the way you run a business. And while there are positives to that, there are private schools that do tremendously well. We all know this. In the public school arena, where we are constrained by the 14th Amendment, where we are constrained by state constitution and statute, where we are constrained by federal statute, we can't run it that way. We have to be fair. We have to be democratic. We have to be representative. We even have to supply free lunch. So please remember that though I get on a soapbox and it sounds like I'm giving a lecture, I'm not going anywhere in particular, I am. We as a community oppose the idea of a non-elected body spending tax dollars given to a private company whose hiring decisions, building decisions, and any other decisions are not publicly available to said taxpayer. That is taxation without representation. I recommend that be your lesson plan for Patriot Week.
Mrs. Eikens, we greatly appreciate your comments at the call of the public. However, over the past couple board meetings, you've made some seriously inaccurate accusations and comments. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to invite you to meet with myself and Dr. Gray to clarify several inaccurate statements and comments you've made.
I don't think we're supposed to have a conversation here.
We're not, but
I have a telephone number.
Yes, you do. And I'd appreciate if you would call us rather than utilize the board time and the board's valuable time with making these inaccurate accusations and character defaming accusations. Mr. Stahl?
Ken Stahl, Brighton. First, I'd like to clarify something, if I may. It's just a question I have for Dr. Gray, if he can or can't answer it. You were speaking about the charter and whether or not they would entertain the idea of not being in control of basically their teachers. What happens to this whole thing if they said, no, we don't want that? I mean, is it null and void? This contract or this negotiation starts over, or what happens here?
The discussion in my office with the board members and the people from the charter was, if the school district charters, is there an interpretation out there based on law that if we hold the charter, that our teachers' unions can accrete those teachers through the MERC board? There hasn't been another public school in Michigan that has chartered a particular charter school. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Streetman, but I don't know if there's any public schools out there other than Detroit or a couple others like ours that have actually done it.
ISDs
Okay? And the information that I received on the teachers' unions accreting those teachers came from an ISD superintendent. So I wanted to make John aware that that's conversation that has happened, just so they can make relevant decisions. And then John talked about the financing. He had somebody there with the curriculum, and then talked after that about their process. That was the crux of the conversation. So we didn't tell them, our teachers, we're going to, I don't have that role anyway. If I could tell the BEA what to do, man, my life would be but I can't. So
I don't know what these mean.
yeah, so we wanted to run through all the scenarios with John so that he could go back, Mr. Streetman and others, and they could talk about it, full disclosure on the table. And that's kind of where it ended. It was about a 45-minute meeting, I would say, 50-minute meeting. And he said he'd get back with me, and I have not heard from him yet, even though I saw him on the first day of school with his kids going to Horning and Maltby. I believe his kids go both of those. And that's kind of where it is.
Thank you. My other comment was simply, I was reading the pack, trying to figure out where this was all going. It's been brought up before what the power of the board is. Very important word, procedure, was brought up today. I think what I don't understand is this is a big deal in the school district, and it's been said that you'll make the decision for those that cannot or can't make up their mind. We brought a very big decision up here, and we took it to a vote. It was a bond. Something this large, I think, and it's been asked many times, why can't we talk about this more? Why are we in a hurry? I would feel much better about it because there's a lot of questions I have, and I'm sure there are many more out there. We'd like the answers, and maybe if we did something like we did with the bond, maybe we should have some meetings in the auditorium and give people a chance to say what they want, because you don't all represent me and all of my wishes. You don't all represent everybody else's. We all have different issues. You all represent us differently. So give us a chance to tell you what we want before you make this decision. It's too important. And you're going to rival the community just as much as we rivaled them during the bond. Only this time they don't get a chance to say anything. We just got to swallow it. So please, entertain the idea of educating the community and listening to what they want to say. Not just the same 20 that keep coming here. Let's open it up. It's a big decision. It doesn't have to be done hastily.
Dr. Gray, I'm confused. What decision are we supposed to be making here?
I think
I wasn't aware of it.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm speaking of the charter school.
Whether or not the district is going to authorize the charter.
That's not even on the agenda.
We're not even.
No, I'm seeing it coming though.
It's
where
not.
It's going to be on discussion, it sounds like soon. And
I don't know what to tell
before
you.
we get there, that's my idea. Bring us out there. Let us talk. Let us get our opinions out so you know what we all really want before you make those choices. I know it's not there right now, but it's coming. I see it.
I'd like to take you down to the casino with me then, because it seems like you can tell the future.
Does that mean you're not going to acknowledge?
You're mine.
Mr. Conley requested that be up for discussion. And Dr. Gray and I will consult when we're.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, you made that request, and Dr. Gray and I have taken that.
Well, for future discussion, please include us. I appreciate it.
All that night and do it for future. Committee all that night if Dr. Gray recommends.
There's several, well, no, it's my meeting. Yeah.
Don't you recommend it? Well, both of you.
We will proceed in a very diligent, thorough manner as appropriate. There will be complete transparency. We have not even begun to get to a point of discussion yet.
I understand that,
We
but
sold the building,
I
and
want
that's
it to be on record for future, that's all.
And we greatly appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Does anybody else wish to speak at this time? The second call of the public is closed and the meeting is adjourned.